Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Rubel, and I'm the Technical Director for Smart Software Acquisition here at the Software Engineering Institute. I'd like to thank all of you out there for attending today. We want to make today's webcast as interactive as possible, so please be sure to submit questions in the YouTube chat area, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. We also have a few live polling questions along the way, so pay attention to those. And now I'd like to introduce our panel of speakers today. First, my teammate, Christina Rylander, is a Senior Software Acquisition Innovation Specialist, helping drive the modernization of software acquisition practices across the Department of War. With over 25 years of experience, including roles here at the SEI, at MITRE, Fearless, and as a Department of War civilian, her expertise spans agile acquisition, digital transformation, program management, and IT modernization. Senior member of the technical staff, Julie Cohen, is a 20-plus-year veteran of the SEI, where she supports several programs, including the E7 project and 3 Department of War-funded research projects. And Aaron Reffett, who's joining me in the studio today, hi, Aaron, is a senior member of the technical staff in the CERT Cybersecurity Foundations Directorate here at the SEI. Aaron develops and operates applications for the analysis of cyber-related data in support of Department of War and DHS missions. And so with everybody introduced, I want to thank you for joining us in this next installment of the Software Acquisition Go Bag series of webinars entitled Pack Light, Measure Right. There's a word from our lawyers. And now for some brief background real quick on the software acquisition pathway, because we know a lot of the folks who are joining us today are still relatively new to this policy. The software acquisition pathway, you'll see it abbreviated as SWP, was the first real software forward or software first acquisition policy released by the Department of War. Over the last few years, we've seen increased uptake in programs utilizing this pathway for the flexibility that it offers and the alignment with best practices in modern software engineering. And the department is continuing to emphasize the need to transition and build new programs utilizing the flexibilities of the software pathway and modern software engineering approaches. The subject of today's webinar is our recently released tactical guide called Pack Light, Measure Right, which is about helping you figure out exactly what the right measures are to earn their keep and getting insights into your software acquisition program, and our handy supplement guide called Decoding the Software Pathway Metrics, which helps translate in between the metrics that are required under the policy and what you need, how you can use them every day in your day-to-day management of a program or a portfolio or a development team. Every guide in our in the Go Bag indicates its primary target users. And so if you're making decisions about software programs, this is for you, specifically if you're members of the program management office, if you're a decision authority on programs, or a member of a product team, there's great stuff for you here today. As always, that QR code on the bottom links directly to the Go Bag website where you can download everything. And our production team is also going to make sure to post links to everything that we discussed today in the live chat. And with that, we're going to get started. My colleague, Christina Rylander, is going to open the conversation talking about why do you care about metrics? Christina, over to you.
All right, so let's get started about talking about the software pathway metrics, right? Historically, many programs have experienced metrics primarily as reporting requirements or compliance artifacts. But under the software acquisition pathway, metrics serve a much, much more important purpose. Good metrics create operational visibility. They help programs make informed decisions, understand performance, identify risks early, and evaluate whether delivery processes are actually supporting mission outcomes. And this is especially important in the software-intensive environments where changes happen continuously. You have the leaders, the program offices, product teams, and they all need timely insight into how work is progressing, not just periodic status updates. The goal is not to collect more data. It is to use the right metrics to better understand program health, delivery effectiveness, and the ability to deliver mission capability predictably and efficiently. That becomes even more important when we look at how software problems tend to emerge over time rather than all at once. So if we go to 7, thank you. The examples on this slide are intentionally simple. Can we go to the next one?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. The example on the slides, they're intentionally simple because they illustrate something super important. So the speedometer, it's not there just to satisfy reporting requirements. It gives you real-time information that helps you make decisions while you're driving. The fuel gauge helps you anticipate risk before you become stranded. And the GPS helps you understand whether you are still on the best path to your intended destination. Software metrics should function the same way for your acquisition program and the delivery teams that are supporting it. They should help programs understand where they are, where risk may be developing, whether delivery is healthy, whether the program is still on track to achieve the mission outcomes. And more importantly, just like driving your vehicle, there's no single indicator that'll tell you the whole story. We don't drive using only the fuel gauge or only the speedometer. You interpret multiple signals together to understand overall operating conditions. That's really actually the core philosophy behind Packlight Measure Right, not just collecting every possible metric, but selecting the right metrics that will provide your program meaningful insight, support better decision-making, and help programs deliver the mission capability more effectively. The objective is not measurement for measurement's sake, of course. The objective is better decisions, healthy delivery systems, and the important mission outcomes. So with that, I'm going to send that over to you, Julie.
Okay, thank you, Christina. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the roles and responsibilities. And Eileen, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So the first one is the Program Management Office. The Program Management Office is responsible for executing the metrics plan. The other important thing is to ensure that the contract will actually support getting the metrics that are needed. In this day and age, you would really like to be able to access the contractor's DevSecOps environments directly to get those metrics. But however you do it, you really need to make sure that the contract provides for the metrics that the Program Management Office needs and that others users need. Also, the Program Management Office should be using the metrics to make decisions. And next slide. The Decision Authority also is interested in the metrics. They're looking for accountability, and they want to ensure that the PMO is making decisions based on actual data and looking at risks and getting that information from real data from a DevSecOps environment and real time from the program, and not from something that was delivered 30 days later for the month before. And the next slide, please. The product team is actually responsible for both producing and using metrics. They need to deliver those metrics from the DevSecOps pipeline. And that should be very transparent data so that everybody knows what the data is and how it's developed and what it means. They should also be using the real-time data to help improve their own performance and their own processes. Now, you may be saying, this is the last slide on roles and responsibilities, and you may be saying, like, okay, so like, where are the testers? So certainly the Program Management Office wants to see some data on testing, but the data that the test groups need is sort of a different type of metrics, and we don't cover that in this particular go bag in detail, but we will cover that in a future go bag where we talk more about actual testing. All right, I think we are going back to Christina, because no matter who is using the metrics, you need to have a plan that's going to help figure out what metrics they need. Christina's going to talk about that.
All right. So one of the important ideas behind Packlight Measure Right is that successful software programs are not managed solely through traditional program indicators like cost and schedule. A program can technically meet every major milestone within budget, with performance, all of the above, right? And still fail to deliver meaningful operational value to the user. That's because the software delivery performance is not just about activity completion. It's about whether the program is continuously delivering usable mission capability in a predictable and sustainable way. A lightweight metrics plan helps establish that shared understanding across the program and stakeholders about what data matters, how it will be interpreted, and how it will support decision making. And importantly, the plan should evolve alongside that program itself. As the team matures, the tooling changes and evolves, delivery cadences accelerate, mission priorities, they shift. The metric strategy should adapt as well right alongside it. So this is not intended to be a static compliance document that gets written once and ignored. The real objective is to create that living operational framework that will help the program continuously evaluate performance, delivery health, and mission outcomes over time. So you might be asking, what should programs actually think about when they're building a metric approach? So when developing a metrics plan, one of the most important things a program can do is think intentionally before they start collecting data. So many times, organizations will begin by gathering every metric available from their tooling, and only later try to determine what insight those metrics are supposed to provide. So instead, we'd like to see programs begin by understanding what decisions need to be made, what outcomes matter the most, and what information is actually needed to support those decisions. From there, the program can then design the supporting metrics architecture. This means the tooling workflows, automation, access models, processes necessary to generate reliable and usable insights. Implementation planning also matters. Metrics are only useful if the programs can clearly define who's responsible, how data will be analyzed, how frequently it will be reviewed, and how insights will translate into action. Another important consideration is incentives. So metrics influence behavior. This can be positive, this can be unintentionally negative, and programs should carefully consider whether their measurement approach is encouraging transparency, continuous improvement, and mission outcomes rather than simply optimizing for reporting's sake. Effective metrics program always includes feedback loops. The goal is not to create that static dashboard. It's to continuously learn, adapt, and improve both software delivery and acquisition performance over time. That's why we emphasize this as lightweight, intentional, and outcome-oriented measurement rather than measuring everything possible. If you've actually read the tactical guide, you'll know that the next step is to start with questions. But in case you haven't, I'm going to have Aaron walk you through that approach at a high level. Over to you, Aaron.
Thanks, Christina. Questions are the core element of a metrics plan because this is what metrics are going to inform. If you don't have a question that needs answered, why are you collecting something to begin with? So going into the process of trying to figure out what questions are important is something that a program needs to address very early in its inception, as early in planning as possible. And it might seem overwhelming at first as the program's trying to get its footing under it, as it's just trying to figure out what it is and what it's trying to do, trying to figure out what its goals are and its objectives are. But if you address this early and importantly, include all of your stakeholders, your internal stakeholders, your external stakeholders, from your decision authorities, your requirements, your operational community, your programmatical functions, your delivery, all the aspects of your program, because all of these influence whether you're going to succeed or not. And you don't want to get blinders on and only focus on cost schedule performance, or only focus on DevSecOps performance, or over focus on those areas and ignore others. So when you go through this process, you want to make sure you get everyone in the room, or all the right people into the room who can help you brainstorm some of these questions. Can we deliver reliably, predictably? You know, is the software stable? Is it of high quality? Are we prioritizing speed over quality, or one or the other? Or some higher level questions for decision authorities and leadership to make sure that we're addressing their concerns. Are things stable? Are we delivering value? If things go wrong, can we recover? Making sure that you're casting a broad net across all of these concern areas, particularly very early, very importantly, the first time to go through this process, will help ensure that you don't have any blind spots and that you're covering all your bases and you're really tapping into the experience of all of the people who are a part of the program, because people who come from different backgrounds, they're going to have figured out things maybe in prior work that worked for them that may work for you now. So you always want to ask for as much input as you can from all the way across your program.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Yeah, we've all been in the situation, I think, at some parts of our lives where, great, you're getting that software update on a regular basis, but oh no, it takes your laptop out of commission for half the day. So I feel like that's just such a nice, easy example of optimizing for speed, or measuring only release frequency doesn't necessarily get you there if the downtime isn't usable to the mission. It's a very simple example, but I think really
correct. You
grind
don't
the
want
day-to-day.
you don't want to be caught later during execution only to find out that some blind spots have caught up with you, and you're going to try to dig yourself out of the problem at a very critical time in program execution. Okay.
Julie's going to talk a little bit more now about aligning metrics to decision-making and outcomes. And again, I want to encourage everybody to drop those questions in the YouTube chat. We're monitoring those, and we'll get to as many of them as we can during the broadcast. Julie, over to you.
Thanks, Eileen. So what Aaron said is absolutely true. You need to ask the right questions, and the whole idea of asking the right questions is to align those metrics to what decisions you have to make and what outcomes you're looking for. The metrics really should influence something. If they're not influencing the decision, or at least having a conversation or changing somebody's behavior, then why are you collecting the metrics? Now, don't get me wrong, this may not happen in the first month you collect the metrics, or the first 6 months, or the first year you collect the metrics. Some metrics may show everything's going along fine, and you get lulled into thinking everything is going to be fine for the entire program. You have to keep looking at the metrics, and when something changes, you need to pay attention. The other big thing is that you have to tailor metrics to the audience. So if it's a decision authority, there'll be different metrics than if it's for the product team. They really have to help evaluate the effectiveness of both the software development and the overall project. How are you doing overall? If you have to interface with something else, if you have to interface with the hardware, then you need some metrics on that as well. Just knowing how the software is doing without knowing how the integration is doing doesn't help your decision making sometimes. So you really have to think about what the decision making and the outcomes are. We can go to the next slide. The other thing about metrics is that you need to use your time wisely. You really need to instrument your data sources and then reuse them. You can't be doing all of this manually every single time. It is too much effort. I've seen programs that have done Excel spreadsheets and have recalculated all of the metrics every single time. I've done that for programs in the past, and in the past that was oftentimes the only way to do it. But nowadays you shouldn't do it that way, especially if you are on the software pathway. You are required to use agile processes and be in a DevSecOps environment. So if you're on the software pathway, your DevSecOps environment should be able to help you collect these metrics, the data that you need automatically, and it should really help with stopping the manual reporting. There may be some metrics that some decision maker needs that you'll have to do some manual manipulation, but the more you can automate, the more you can collect from the DevSecOps environment. Just even get into the DevSecOps environment and look at a dashboard there, the better off you are. The other part of this slide talks about tracking progress over time. A single snapshot almost never tells you a picture. I won't say never, because every once in a while it does. But typically, you need to look at tracking over time. You need to see how things are progressing, and then build those feedback mechanisms in. As if things start to go downhill, as soon as they do, you want to try and figure out why and what you're going to have to do to get back on track. Next slide, please. Okay, you really need to treat your data as a strategic asset. It really does inform decision making. So you need to manage to the mission value. You need to figure out, what is my mission as the program management office, right? Who am I delivering them to? How often do they want it delivered? What capability do they want delivered? And what metrics do I have to collect to know that? Another one that most people, I think, know at this point is, don't rely on a single metric. Rarely does it really tell you everything you need to know. You should have different metrics depending on what your questions are. The last one can be very tricky. Data can be aggregated, at least some data. Again, not all data can be aggregated either. It all depends on how you're collecting it and what the meaning is. But typically metrics cannot be aggregated. They've already been combined in complicated ways. Don't assume that you can just do math on different metrics and put them together. You really need to you need to understand exactly what those calculations were, because often they're a proxy and it's not a direct measurement. Aaron, any comments on treating your data as an asset?
Sure. I'm an engineer at heart, and I've implemented a lot of systems over my career, many of which collect and analyze data. I think it's really important for programs to understand, have a good understanding of their processes and an understanding what systems that they're going to bring to bear to support those processes, and be thoughtful about what systems are going to be authoritative for data, which ones are not going to be, what data should they be collecting, align that to the parts of their process, and put some thought into how can we obtain clean data, keep it clean, and then probably most importantly, get these systems used by the people who are working through the processes, so that even if you don't have data that is being used actively in a metric, that you're still collecting usable, clean, actionable data that can be employed at a future time. The worst time to be scrambling for data is when you need it. So it's best to be thinking ahead and being ahead of the curve on it.
And we have an audience question that I will toss to Christina. This is from Matt. Shouldn't metrics as well as governance be tailored to the behavior expected throughout the program structure?
I feel like I would change one word in that, Eileen, and I feel like it's really about the outcomes that are expected. I do still agree with the word behavior at the end of the day, but I think it's first and foremost tailored to the outcomes expected from the program itself. And then underpinning that are the behaviors that are expected, providing the guardrails throughout the program structure and the duration of the program.
Thanks, Christina. I think now we are moving into talk about decoding the software pathway metrics, unlocking the hidden value in those metrics that are collected to monitor the policy, and understanding how they can be used at different layers of managing your program. And so I think Julie was going to talk about this, and then Aaron was going to walk us through some real time, some real examples from work with our clients.
Yes, thanks. So what a lot of people don't understand when they're on the software pathway is those metrics that they are required to provide to OSD every 6 months are really not meant to monitor the program. They were developed to try to help monitor how well the software pathway itself was doing, and if changes would be needed to the policy to help the software pathway do a better job helping programs deliver meaningful software at the speed of the mission need. So that's why OSD is asking for those metrics. Having said that, you would hope that there might be some way, since you have to collect those metrics anyway, could the program office or the decision authority actually use those metrics in some way to be helpful? And so we did a supplement to this tactical guide called Decoding Software Pathway Metrics. So this should help you understand how you might be able to use those metrics that you're collecting anyway as part of your plan to help you on your mission to deliver software that meets the mission needs. And now Aaron is going to go through an example of that. Over to you, Aaron.
Thanks, Julie. So let's just take a look at one of the many software pathway metrics that programs are required to track. This one's average cycle time. It's defined as average cycle time in days. And so let's quote from the regs. Execution phase, the average duration time in days to deliver a capability or feature into operation measured from the time that the need is identified for a specific build, meaning we're going to start building it, until the time that code is committed or development activity is finished. So I personally would have probably given this a more precise name of either development cycle time or something like that, because anyone who has any kind of process engineering background will understand the concept of cycle time as it comes from production engineering. And you can measure the cycle time of any process that you want to, but this is just one small part of, as we'll see here in a second, a much more complicated process of processes of delivering capability in the hands of the warfighter. So it should be pretty obvious. We could look at this one and see what sort of questions can this help answer? Like, how reliable are teams at delivering software? Is the team making progress against prioritized user needs? How long does it take on average to complete development work? So it's obviously the faster that you can code up a solution, you would expect the faster that a final solution can be in the hands of the warfighter. This is needed at all levels. Decision authorities and leadership can use this at a high level across multiple teams to kind of see how things are going. The program can look inward and say, how well are we at doing development activities? Individual product teams can say, are we good at coding? Can we move faster? And then, of course, Pentagon level policymakers need this for their very high programmatic level understanding. And some potential data sources to get this from, probably easiest place would be something like a task tracking system. But due to the preciseness of this particular metric, choosing the right data sources to be the beginning and the end, because those are the two dates that are important for this, is going to be important for the program to decide for themselves. Because there's a little bit of wiggle room in a lot of these metrics. And the program needs to decide, what does it mean for us, so they can consistently collect the same metric over time and it means the same thing. But as we say, our single metric never tells the whole story. This is just one slice of the value delivery phase. Using this as a thought experiment, programs can say, well, how long does it take for us to get through the requirements process? How long does it take to do testing and validation? How long does it take to field? These are all constituent pieces from kind of conception to deployment. And if you can break a large process up and down into sub-processes, you can use a metric like cycle time on those sub-processes to get an idea of where bottlenecks may be or where improvements can be made. So get some ideas, think creatively as you're going through these required metrics and say, well, maybe there's a different spin that we can take on this that's usable for us.
And we've seen situations where this also helps give us insight into process discipline. For example, how many people out there are guilty of writing things down on their to-do list right when they've been finished and then crossing them off? And there can be a tendency, particularly with shorter stories, for example, to do the work and then document the ticket in the tracking system. And you can sort of uncover by looking at this data where the process execution itself that helps you, that you're using to build software, where the process is firing and where it might need, where it might need some help, even if the software development activity is fine, but the tracking activity that lets you get the insight into how well are we doing, like how are we, what are we really achieving, where are the bottlenecks, being able to uncover that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And Eileen,
yeah.
I would just remind people that the supplement actually goes through every single metric that the software pathway requires you to report and does the same thing. So it's not just this one. They're all in there.
Good point, Julie.
Yeah, every single one. And I really like the work that the team put together to do this was really fantastic. And we did it in partnership with Aaron, working on with some of our DOW mission partners, helping them to get to that alignment up and down from the development teams to the program management office to the decision authority, and mapping into the software pathway metrics to streamline the measurement activity and really make the best investment in getting the best understanding that they could. So for every single one, as Julie says, we cover the policy definition, questions that this question can help answer, and an understanding at each level of leadership or decision making how that data, how that metric can be useful. It's really an absolute gem. And again, you can download that on the GoBag website, and the links to the individual assets are in the chat, and also all of the everything for the website will be in the closing matter today. Before we move on to close out the agenda today, are there any other questions from out there in internet land that the team can answer about decoding the software pathway metrics or setting up your metrics plan to gain insight into your program? We still have a few minutes while I walk through what's coming next and where you can get your hands on all the GoBag resources. So please don't be shy. And okay, ask and ye shall receive. Let's see. Julie, I'm going to ask you to take this one if that's okay.
Yep.
Does the supplement address how these metrics might scale to rapid prototyping efforts, where upfront requirements and even releases may not be planned or provided?
So I would say that it does not specifically address that. But if it could be for that type of a program where you're doing rapid prototyping, you probably need to think a lot about other metrics besides the software pathway metrics. You will need to develop metrics that likely have to do with testing and user acceptance, and just how quickly you can change in the middle of an increment if you need to. That's all the, you may not have all the planning you need when you go into PI planning. You may not know exactly where you want this to go until you've been through a couple of sprints and you get feedback on the sprints from the users. So you may need some different metrics on how quickly you can respond to change and those types of things. If you look at the software pathway metrics and you look at the supplement, hopefully you will find at least some places in the product team or the pipeline where those may apply still, even if you're doing rapid prototyping. But that is certainly a different type of program, and you're going to have to think carefully about the metrics that you need to guide your execution. If anybody else wants to add, please feel free.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to add on to that. It's when you're in that rapid prototyping phase, to kind of yes and everything Julie just said about it, it is a little bit different. What are the outcomes of that rapid prototyping phase? What questions do you need to be answering during that rapid prototyping phase? And aligning those with the metrics that will help you continuously learn something on the path of delivery. And then as you get into less of the rapid prototyping and more into the iterative program delivery, then all of those lessons learned during rapid prototyping can culminate into your metrics approach and plan and process.
The Packlight Measure Right tactical guide, the origin story for the GoBag project was in helping to scale the use of the software acquisition pathway, right, to enable more rapid delivery. But Packlight Measure Right, the beauty of this is the principles behind how you develop that metrics plan, figure out what kinds of insights you need and who needs them. You don't need to be on the software pathway for that to apply. All of that is grounded in good software development and good acquisition measurement foundations and principles. And so while we provided the supplement, the decoder for the software pathway specific metrics, those underpinning techniques and guidelines that we talked about in Packlight Measure Right all still apply, even if you're not on a software pathway program. And when Christina talked about learning forward from a rapid prototyping situation, if your program isn't on the software pathway, you're doing that kind of rapid prototyping, but knowing that you're going to transition what you develop when you get out of the prototyping stage, knowing that you're going to transition potentially onto a software pathway program, you can sort of build forward some of the scaffolding or the structure for what you know you will need to collect when that program moves to the software pathway. And you can think through that too, about the applicability of the software pathway metrics in a future state. So setting up your measurement program to get you the insight you need now with an eye toward making that work the best it can for you in the future, doing something that's reusable in the future as the program state changes. Okay, do we have any further questions out from the community? I think we'll have time for a few more. I'll start talking about what's coming next, because I know you're all excited to hear about that. So what's next for the Go Bag? Our production team is going to post a polling question in the chat. If folks are interested in more in-depth workshops or short courses or more in-depth treatment on some of these specific topics for what we've talked about today in Pathlight, Measure Right, or other Go Bag topics, or if you have stories to share, lessons lived in any direction, check out the poll in the chat. And the poll is also in our after webinar email. That helps us to figure out how we can best meet your needs out in the community and what we should prioritize building next out of the Go Bag. So please look for those questions in the chat. And if you are watching this online on the recording after today's live broadcast, the after webinar email that we send out will contain those questions as well. We continue to build out the tactical guides and supplements in the Go Bag in this particularly in the Software Pathway Essentials Kit. And all of that information is contained on the Go Bag website, including recordings of our prior podcasts, our webinars. So everything is at scI.cmu.edu/project/GoBag, or you can hit that QR code there. You can always pack your bag with the latest and greatest. We've been releasing short video clips with pieces from these webinars and other content. And you can join our subscription list or send us email with feedback or insights to share. You can also now follow the Go Bag project on LinkedIn for announcements, for webinar announcements and product launches and exclusive content that we'll be developing for that channel. And so the link is contained here on the slide. And so I will, okay, I don't think we have any more questions from out there in internet land. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. You can always reach out to our team directly, or all those QR codes go to us individually, or you can hit the Go Bag project page. And so Erin, Christina, and Julie, I want to thank you so much for a great conversation today. Thank you for sharing your expertise with the community. And I want to thank all of you out there for attending today. On exiting, please hit the like button below the video window and share the archive if you found this session valuable. And remember that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the SCI seal in the lower right-hand corner of the video. Our next webcast, oh, I'm so excited for this one. It's going to be on May 21st, and the topic is AI native software engineering, enduring principles, new pace. Registration information is on our website, and it's going to be emailed out in our regular announcements. Any questions that you have from today's event, again, you can reach out through the QR codes and contact methods for Go Bag, or you can always send email to info@sci.cmu.edu, and we'll get you where you need to go. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.